And this hangout is on air and live, and it is a kind of a melancholy kind of vibe in the air this morning here in the Chicago region. We've got rain and clouds and a nice soft landing kind of background. But my guest is down in sunny Florida. So, how are you this morning, Starlene?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it is nice down here. I was at the beach yesterday, but it was
Uh,
cool for the beach, really, but it was beautiful.
well, that's cool. And, when you can get down to the beach and it's not sweltering, I think that often is more enjoyable than, when you go down there and you're just having to replace your suntan oil over and over again because you're sweating so much. So, well, now, Starlene, you have a wide range of things you're doing. You're an astrologer and you are a person who is involved with Reiki and looking to assist others, heal others in whatever avenues are available. Um, and now you are definitely getting more deeply into A Course in Miracles. So, give us a little bit of a background about, what your life was like, and then all of a sudden what it became as A Course in Miracles. You first discovered it. How did you discover it, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, since I was a young girl, I was always interested in searching for God. And I think I came about that from my parents, my father, and particularly when I was in preteen stuff, he was going through a phase of his life where he studied with different religious backgrounds, everywhere from Jehovah's Witnesses. Most of them were Christian of some sort, to Catholics, to non-denominational unity, which you're probably familiar with. And we stuck with that one for a while, and really it was something that we both enjoyed. And he had this deep desire to learn about what God really is. And I guess I kind of acquired that from him, along with a lot of other thoughts about spirituality. And that was in my early years. And we go along our path and we learn different things. I came into Reiki and crystal healing in my late teens. I'm in my 40s now, so like I've been through this stuff a lot. I've gone through personal injuries that were pretty severe, and difficulties, and feeling like, why me? And and then I personally started going through probably in my early 30s, right after my Saturn return, that I was starting to reach out and figure out, although I had this like background and somewhat knowledge of it, like what is the answer, like what is, like, the same question my dad had. So he actually came to me, and he, I'd met you many years ago, and I knew you from an astrology group, but I knew your interest in A Course in Miracles. But it's interesting to me because I was a little repelled by A Course in Miracles at first because it had a Christian overtone to it. And I understand they use the word Jesus and the Son of God and stuff like that. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it shied me away because I had gone through a lot of Christian religions and didn't think it was me, but I didn't have a religion. And I'm not sure that A Course in Miracles is really a religion, but it's a way of understanding God and love. And I, so I did have a little bit of like, I'm not sure about this, but my father had been talking to a few people in a group in the morning and reading the Course. And I even invited you to us. Remember, we talked for a long time about the Course every morning. And, I learned about it then, and I read the book with them, and it was just became this, very profound like layer of understanding all the little things that had been going on in my life, and that I had sort of understood or sort of had a grasp of, but really didn't have the glue to stick it all together. And that's what A Course in Miracles started to become for me. And my journey with that started, I looked back on in my book, which I just had it. My journey with that started in 2008. So I was, I wrote it in my book when I got the book, when my journey started. And, my book is very precious to me because I you know, make notes in it and stuff like that. But, you know, in some ways, you know, I think it helped me to have more depth and understanding and appreciation for myself, first of all, and that forgiveness that you need to start with yourself, and then with other people, and realizing that, you know, we don't have to still be held by the constraints of what people think we should be or society thinks we should be. It gave me freedom in a way, you know, to be able to have the love that I always felt was there, but I didn't know how to get to that space of being free and being able to love and not hold on to any of the challenges. And yes, of course, I'm a human being like everybody else. we get like every day our ego says to ourselves, hey, you sure you really want to let go of this, and gives us a test, you know, and that happens, and it's just part of being human, and I love that part of it too. But we always have the opportunity to choose. Am I choosing my ego path, which sometimes that's okay, you know, we're human, or am I choosing my love path, you know? And to me, that was such a profound thing. And, you know, like of course, you know, I go through life and fumble around like everybody else, but I think it's helped me to be much more balanced with everything that, you know, I go through. So it's it's been pretty profound for me, like something that I really feel like the glue that stuck all of the little things that I knew from different trains of thought, you know, through my Reiki training, which was very extensive, through my astrological training, which is, you know, and I even extended that more going to an astrology school after already experiencing A Course in Miracles. But, you know, it just enriched all of those things to the point where I understood, you know.
That's very cool. And yes, I do remember having that opportunity to participate with your dad in those discussions about A Course in Miracles. And at that time in my life, I really felt like, you know, I guess I was on a quest, and anybody who would join the quest with me, I was very excited about. So, you know, things kind of evolve and change and transform right in front of you. And I was kind of off and running. What was the next step that you observed your father taking? Because it sounded like he, after I had kind of stopped the dialogue, it sounds like he got even deeper and deeper into the Course.
He did, and there were times when he had experiences, which I've noticed in myself, but for him it seemed they were more deep, that he was like, I'm not sure if all of this is just made up. And in a way, the answer is that it is, right? And so it was kind of like a weird thing to go through. But since we studied together, we both were able to have that deep dialogue, and having a few friends that, you know, understood it too, we could talk with them as well. And, you know, it is like all of, you know, it is all of the ego is an illusion, you know, and the part that is really real is love. And, you know, he's since passed away in 2014, which I know that you know, but, you know, even to his, you know, he went through a very long 6-month stay in the hospital. And even then, when he was conscious, I would read to him A Course in Miracles, and he would ask me to. I'm not sure if all of it filtered in, but it was something for him to like feel. And like, I think he came to this piece where he understood, you know, that it is love. And I will tell you, the moment, you know, just before his passing, the look on his face, because I was with him, it was just absolute pure love. Like, he just was in bliss, and I just knew. I didn't even cry. It took me a while to kind of was in shock, but, you know, it was pure bliss. And I never felt so at peace myself, you know, that experience itself. And I'm positive that A Course in Miracles helped me to feel this way, because I could see myself pre-Course in Miracles freaking out in a moment of, you know, my father passing, which, you know, there was part of me that was very, very sad, you know, but there's part of me that knows that he's not, you know, it's not the end for him, you know, and he's still part of me. And like, we're really one, you know, in that spirit essence, you know, and that was the beauty of it. So I came to like feel like that was the most spiritual experience in my life this far, you know, having held his hand while he passed. So it was really beautiful, you know. And I think for him, I was grateful that we had the experience we had previously. And then as he was transitioning through this whole medical thing, and, you know, which he finally passed away from, not finally, but he just passed away from, you know, he had A Course in Miracles still with him, you know, and I read to him, and another friend of his that he spoke with A Course in Miracles would read to him on the phone. And, you know, it was really great, really pretty beautiful. And I think helped so much in the transition of understanding ourselves on such a loving level.
Absolutely. It is kind of an interesting thing that once you encounter A Course in Miracles, and then somebody that you have a close bond with transitions over, it gives you a different perspective on that whole process. And, you know, I know that when I was a child, I lost my father when I was 6, which was, you know, 30 years before A Course in Miracles was even scribed. But for me, I remember being at the wake and looking at the body and rejecting that idea of death. I remember it was like, this makes no sense whatsoever. Death it cannot be real. And so it made me, I guess you could say, very angry. So I carried that probably for the next 20 years with me, was this sense of anger about the whole idea of death, this sense of resistance to the idea of death. And you know, and at some point you have to shift your understanding to be able to process that idea as merely being a transient place that people enter into, but it is not a point of termination like the ego, you know, is demanding that we believe. So anyway, in addition to all your other interests, I know that, wow, your kids are growing up and flying away from the nest now, but
Yes.
you were raising a boy and a girl in a somewhat spiritual environment, but, you know, having to do the day-to-day survival thing, et cetera, et cetera. So how did that affect your parenting, and how did that affect their evolution as young spirits in the material world?
Right. That's a great question. So my daughter is 26. She'll be 27 next month, and my son just turned 20. My daughter flew the coop a long time ago, and she's married, which is great. I'm so happy for her. And my son lives in an apartment that's like a mother-in-law's quarters to my house. So he's semi moved out, but it's nice. And as they were growing up, they were very interested in the different things that I was into. You know, I tried to interest them. You know, we influence our kids in such a way. But they had a huge dichotomy in their life, which was that both of their fathers, they're actually from 2 different relationships, their ages are 6 years apart, is that they were both Catholic, devout Catholic, and it was almost a conflict for them as growing up, especially my daughter. There was, when she was young, it was a conflict. I mean, especially my son, actually more my son than my daughter, I meant to say, where he was extremely, almost, what's the word you use when someone's like intensely into a religion, almost fundamentalist, I guess, you know, into Catholicism in a way that I had never experienced. And because he didn't understand me, you know, he had kind of expressed to our son, who was young, that I was a witch, so to speak, and that's terrible and bad. And, you know, and this is before A Course in Miracles even, but, you know, I was trying to figure things out. So, you know, it was kind of a interesting thing. And my son was like, Mom, like, I don't understand this. So he had an exposure to religion in an intense way when he grew up, you know, as a young child, because of our differences in relationship and the religion thing, which is why we didn't work out. But, you know, not to be too personal, but that's, you know, the fact of it. And he, you know, my son decided that he wanted to understand, so he listened to what I said, and I told him, I said, listen to your father, listen to, you know, everybody, and figure out if this is, you know, what's right for you, you know. And, you know, in a way, I think now with him being 20 and young, he's not so what I would say spiritual or religious, but he respects both of us and our views, even though they're very different. And I believe he's going to be somewhat like what I am now. Like, I don't subscribe to any particular religion, and that's why I think I say A Course in Miracles to me is a guide instead of a religious, way, even though it has, obviously God is a religious thing. I just don't see it as religion. I just see it as a guide, and as it's a guide, it's helping me to be the best person I can be, and I think that my son understands that about me, and we have a really like interesting and healthy relationship for a mother and a 20-year-old son, because I think sometimes I see my girlfriends with kids that age and they struggle with them, but I think we can understand each other because we've been able to be open and communicate with each other about religion and spirituality. And, it's interesting because him and all his friends, when there's something comes up, it's, oh, mom's an astrologer. I have to go to talk to her. And I intertwine, A Course in Miracles and life in general with astrology consultations and helping people, because astrology is not just about saying, Jupiter is conjunct your Mars. It's about saying this is what it means to you and how you can heal, and so, there's a lot of that in there. And it's cool because I'm seeing the younger generation, more from my son because he lives with me, and my daughter's in Chicago where you're at, but more from my son because he's here. But I see the younger generations are starting to understand and open up and be like, from like I was when I was their age. But when I was their age, that was weird. Like people weren't so like open-minded. I just kind of found the right people to be open-minded around. It seems like nowadays people as a whole are more open-minded to spiritual thoughts or different ideas of spirituality. Maybe it was my perception, but I think it's pretty beautiful that that influenced my children like that. My daughter, she's actually chosen to be Catholic, which is wonderful, but she is a Reiki master, and she believes in it, and she does it. I was into Reiki before when she was 2 and before my son was born. Both of them have Reiki. They practice it a little, but it's more like when something's going on, we need to some prayers or Reiki, if that's it. But I think that in some ways, from my own perspective, and maybe they will do something a little bit different with themselves, but I think I can see a little bit of myself in them, where I started learning things young, and then I kind of pieced it together as I got older, and of course in Miracles being part of that. And that's something since I've been getting into it more, and I've been sharing Facebook posts, and people are talking to me more about it, which I love. I kind of don't have that community I had in the first place when I started reading A Course in Miracles with people, that I'm enjoying communicating about it with people, my family's also been asking me questions about it. So it's nice that I'm seeing this evolution in my own self and my own path with my family with that.
Yes, it does seem to give us a prod. Once we get into the course, we start noticing things in our lives that are mobilizing, speeding up, and we begin to recognize that there is something going on that we didn't, previously have occurring in our lives. And so it ends up being kind of a journey into discovery and awakening that is supported by experiences. A line of synchronicity will all of a sudden appear in your life, and people get moved around, and doors close and new doors open. So as you were really starting to get into the course with your father, did you notice a lot of events or a number of synchronistic occurrences that all of a sudden started popping up around you?
I did, but I just also wanted to say one thing that you had touched on to give a little perspective of it for me is before I tell you about the synchronicities that happened, but my experience with the course is that like in sharing it with other people, I think is really cool, because I'm just sharing what I love, and I'm not like going on the streets and trying to convince people to be religious or something like that. It's just kind of come naturally, and I think in some ways like it's helped me to radiate this vibe of other people saying, oh, I'm curious about this, so it's been kind of interesting to have it happen that way, rather than me being out there saying preaching or something like that, which I'm not doing. So, but it's so cool how that kind of happens, and I think people gravitate to that because they want that fulfillment, that it seems to appear to give you in your life, which it does. But, looking in on someone that's into it kind of goes, wow, like they have something there that I want to understand, so it's been pretty beautiful. But some of the synchronistic things that I saw happening, I was going through a back injury, a lower spine injury, and that I resulted in having 2 surgeries on. And I think in between the 2 surgeries, the first and the second, is when I experienced A Course in Miracles. It was. And I was so angry at it being injured at 29 years old. And, I'm, a little older at that time, but having to have these surgeries and go through pain and, all this stuff, I remember having a few moments of like, feeling angry even at the Course because I didn't understand it fully, that I was having to experience this. And it was saying that pain is an illusion. And I'm like, how can that be? I'm in pain right now. I like screw you. I really felt like that. I mean, I just emoted that to the people I was talking to, and you may have even been part of that. But in time and in understanding, it's like when I first read the book, and I do read the book continually. I'm always somewhere in it, and I think I'll probably be like that for my whole life. It's like a life journey, like you said. But I think. With myself, it's like I read something and it inspires something inside of me to think about something, and then I'm like going to ask a question to elaborate on what I just read, and then the next chapter is actually the answer. It's been this unfolding of like information that it's like you start from the beginning, and it just kind of like unfolds this thing that feels like it's like part of you already, like the first part of it, this is A Course in Miracles. It's a required course. I mean, that whole little paragraph is, when I first read it, was like, oh my gosh, I have to read this book, and it was this unfolding of like beauty inside of that. So I noticed that in the synchronistic part of, the question you asked me, the synchronistic part, I noticed that it was like my life started becoming that way, and I started realizing I am creating miracles, just as everyone else is, and it was started to like open that beauty that I always felt was there, but I didn't understand it.
So, Starlene, you've kind of given us a broad overview as far as all the different events that were going on in your life and all the different situations you were encountering. Now, how about people being brought to you? I noticed that when I started working with A Course in Miracles, all of a sudden people who were not part of my normal circle of people that I interacted with started showing up. Did you find that was the case also?
I did. I found that, since I do work online, and I have since 2002, I have acquired lots of people from different places, in my Reiki journey, a lot of people on my journey with astrology and, tarot cards and so on and so forth. And even A Course in Miracles. And, you never know what everybody's into. So like when social media popped up and I started sharing things on social media about A Course in Miracles, I realized that there were people I didn't even know that I knew about and talked to, but I didn't know that that was part of their life as well. And then there were people to me that were curious about it and wanted to understand it more. And then there were people that I consulted with that I'm like, this is actually what you need to read, and I've shared it with many people in that respect too. So there's been a lot of that, and it's interesting to know that there are so many people that actually have this open, broad-minded, broad enough minded thing to think about A Course in Miracles, or such like it, to be able to like kind of open their mind a bit. So it's very interesting that experience of having so many people that pop up, like that to me.
Very cool. And You had mentioned some serious injuries that you were trying to work your way through as far as a back injury and that sort of thing. Um, but it appears that you're doing quite nicely now. Do you feel like A Course in Miracles was a big part of that journey of reclaiming your health and getting back to the point where your days became more balanced out and more productive?
Yeah, I really do. And a big part of it was A Course in Miracles giving me structure or foundation for something to, for me to start, like you said, build upon, because it felt like, I had fallen into a depression, and, I guess I was depressed at that time, even though I didn't say, I'm depressed. I didn't really understand it, because until I got out of it, I didn't really see it for what it was. Having been injured and going through a lot of pain, and dealing with that, I, and in that I found A Course in Miracles, and that helped me to have like some structure. And then I started realizing, oh, I need to actually start to love myself too, because I think in that depression, I started to like hate my body because I was in pain all the time. And, in that, stop loving me, like, and taking care of me. And, it's kind of like a depression is like a cycle that just, pulls you down, and everything kind of gets like a vortex of like sucking you into something, a deep hole, and, stop taking care of myself and stop loving myself and stop doing things that are healthy for myself, such as exercising and meditation and, reading A Course in Miracles. I would get sucked into the normal, all the other things of drama of life that really isn't necessary, that you understand once you understand A Course in Miracles. And I started to realize, oh, there's a different way, and it started to help me to recover. And my recovery wasn't just physical, it was mental and spiritual at the same time, because, having gone through all that I did, I felt like I was just kind of in that deep hole and I didn't know a way out of it. So to me, when I started A Course in Miracles, it was like a beacon, a light, that was in the distance, but it was still there. And I knew I could focus on it and start to swim towards it, and things started becoming brighter, and I could see what's around me instead of it just being completely foggy, and it was really kind of beautiful. And at the time of going through it, I don't necessarily say I could have told you what I just said, but in hindsight, I can definitely look back and see that's what it was. I just felt compelled to continue with this. It just, something struck a chord in me after starting the reading of it, that, I mean, I even woke up really early before I went to work out, to do this, like to do A Course in Miracles and read it. And, I started my day that way, and it would just became beautiful and a habit, like something I just want to bring into my experience, because it makes me feel good. But, you have to have all the components of life, when you're in the physical body. You have to take care of the health. You have to take care of the mind. You have to take care of, the spiritual side. You can't just do one or the other, or else you're unbalanced. But that was the key to getting me to balance out the rest of what I was trying to do with everything else. And in that felt the balance of my health getting better, and my mental health, my emotions getting better, and since that injury happened in the early 2000s, and then the surgeries and such happened, and I got into a good space, I became injured again with my spine and had 2 more surgeries. And the funny thing, it wasn't funny, it's the interesting thing looking back, that I had this new experience that was very similar to the last one, and it was something I had to work through. And I started to feel myself getting pulled into that dark hole again. And I said to myself, I can't do that. That's not where I have to go. So I called one of my girlfriends, and that I spoke with a lot about Course in Miracles. And I said, can we just do this once a week, talk for an hour and just read? And, I need that. And that helped me to remember, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to succumb to the ego and go into that dark space. You can pull yourself out of it. And I did again, and I didn't, that whole experience I had that was so challenging for me in the beginning, I didn't have the same experience, in the second time around, because I understood that there was something better, deeper, stronger for me that I could actually put my focus on. And that was A Course in Miracles.
Well, that's very cool. And so basically, I'm getting a feedback there.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I was wondering if you had the headphones or.
Um,
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like it's stopped now, or at least diminished. But a lot of times when we're going through different situations and we introduce the Course with myself, it will bring the same situation back around so that you can actually complete it. Because really in life, most people end up confronting the same things over and over and over again ad nauseum. But it seems like when you're working with the Course, it will bring it back up for review so that you can really identify all the things that you needed to learn in this part of your journey. And then it gives you a sense of release. So within that, after you had resolved the thing with the back, what was the next big event that arrived in your life?
Yeah. Well, the lower back injury, it was my neck the second time around. And it was actually 10 years, almost to the date, that they happened apart from each other, the injuries. The lower back was resolved. I still have stuff going on there, but that's part of life. And I've come to terms with just understanding that I need to take care of my body, and that's the healing part of it. And like I said, I had forgotten how to do that over time. And, then my neck injury happened, and that happened in 2012, and I had surgery in 2012 and 2013, and a lot of healing process from that. And, probably 2014, 13, 14, like later part of 13 and 14, I was starting to get myself back and drive again and all that stuff. And, that's when my dad fell ill, and for 6 months before he passed away. So, and that was, I think, the hook that, the Buddhists call it Shempa, when you get these hooks inside of you that pull you in a certain way. And that was my Shempa that pulled me back to the Course once again. And while he went through his transition, I didn't know that he was going to pass away. It wasn't like he had terminal illness. He fought for his life for a long time before he did pass away. And it was kind of surprising, but, being ill for 6 months was, it was always touch and go and scary. But, when he passed away, I understood that, this was not the end. This was not, I understood that. I knew it. I knew he knew it. And it felt, like I said, one of the most spiritual experiences of my life. And since then, in 2014, which was another experience for me with my back problems, because in that time that he was ill, I did focus on my spirituality. And this is the important part, what I believe, and why we have to have the balance between our physical bodies and our emotional bodies and our spiritual bodies, is that I lost that physical body, thing. I was exercising and taking care of myself, but he got sick and in the hospital, and all I did was surround my entire life around him and work. And then I'd even most of the time sleep at the hospital, just because I was so nervous about, what was going to happen next. And, I was very, very nervous about it. Even though I held that high spiritual understanding of things, my physical body just kind of went to the wayside. And when he passed away, I realized, I said, wow. And he was the one that explained to me, you need to listen to your doctors and get healthy again by physically making yourself exercise and, eat better. And he inspired that in me years ago. And I said, you know what? He would be telling me to get up and go exercise or, eat healthy or something. I gained a lot of weight, and, and I started that the week after. I called a lady that was my personal trainer before and my friend, and I said, I need your help. And it's been, and I was so bad at that point with my physical body that I, it was like 2014. So it was a few years ago. I was about 40. And I was having a hard time walking. Like if you saw me walking, you would think I was crippled or had some really big problem with my hips or something because of my spine. And, you know, I sat around and didn't work my muscles out. And so I called my trainer after he passed and I said, I need help. Can you help me? And we went from, you know, having difficulty to walking. And now the last couple months I've started running very short distances, but I'm running. Like that was something I never thought I would experience again. And that journey was part of me relying back on, I know I can heal myself by doing the right things for my body. And that was part of A Course in Miracles taught me that I needed to have all those components, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual together. It has to be a balance, you know? So I don't know if I was faced with such a tragic thing or difficult thing as my father being in the hospital for 6 months and passing, I would be able to keep that up. But I would hope that I would remember I need to take care of me too. And, you know, that whole experience helped me to understand, you know, that, you know, taking care of all three parts of ourselves is so, so important. You know, it's very, very important. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on with me up to date, you know, lately.
Well, it sounds like it, you know, has had a profound and positive impact in your life. So now looking, you know, a little bit toward the future, what do you envision yourself doing, you know, a year from now, 5 years from now? I mean, do you have a kind of a theme going on, or are you just leaving it completely open and allowing higher consciousness to direct you? Or what is your expectation as we move forward a long time?
Yeah, well, definitely keeping my balance with all of it. And I think I'm, you know, in some ways letting spirit guide me. One of my favorite things to say is guide my hands and guide my feet when I ask God to tell me what to do, because I don't know where I'm going. I'm currently an astrological consultant, and that's my main business at this point. And I have been thinking about, and that's why I'm really glad that you invited me on this hangout, because I have been thinking about starting that myself, and sharing things about astrology, even things about A Course in Miracles. You know, there's so many things that I could tell to help people heal, you know, that I could, you know, definitely do. And I feel like a lot of it would be good stuff for people to listen to. So I'm contemplating about doing that. Probably, I'm sure within the next year, I will have that sorted out for myself. And I feel like I'm going to continue with my astrological consultations. And I've been recently in the last year doing a lot of research with astrology, and using like modern techniques and ways of using like statistical analysis to actually figure out if astrology works or not. And so I'm really excited about that. We just had a recent conference called the Kepler Conference. It was a research astrology conference where people from all over the world came in and shared how they were doing their research. And it's a different kind of way than looking at astrology just from like a Hellenistic or ancient astrology practice, because it's, you know, looking at it from sort of like a scientific way, and everybody has their own different way of doing it. So it was really cool to experience that, but I'm getting into that more. So that's definitely part of my future as well. You know, I'm really interested in researching, and I'm starting to begin doing that with someone who is already a medical astrologer. I took a course on classical medical astrology, and I'm starting to learn with another person and actually do some research with him on medical astrology, because that to me is very interesting, and helping people heal in that respect, or to avoid, you know, the difficulty that could be facing them, you know, if we do something different, you know, like in other words, if we take care of our bodies in a certain way, we won't have, you know, these things going on with us, you know. And one of the things we're thinking about doing research on is like diabetes, or also alcoholism. So thinking about how, because we can get a lot of data with that. So that's kind of interesting for me, and that's what I've been working on, and what I see myself doing in the future.
Very good. And so as kind of a way to wind it up here for our discussion, could you give us a thought or two about A Course in Miracles and how you would like to share the course with other people? In other words, can you kind of in a synopsis tell us how it has enhanced your life, and whether or not you would actually encourage people to pick the book up?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage people to pick the book up. And I realize that it comes to you, it may come to you multiple times before you actually start reading it. And that's okay. It did to me. It was some resistance in me. But once you understand it and you start to, like, you know, open your mind to it, I think that it has profound experiences in your life when you start to embrace, to understand the contents of it. The contents of it are so much. There's so much to say about that. But once you start to understand that, your life can change in a way that you may not have really been able to imagine it before. So I would definitely encourage someone to read A Course in Miracles if it comes to them, you know, and take time to find some group or people to discuss it with, because I can see where sometimes I really love reading A Course in Miracles on my own, but I can see sometimes where reading it on your own can be, especially at first, can be kind of like maybe you're not sure or you have questions, and talking with other people about it would definitely help you to get through that. Those parts where you're like, when I mentioned I was angry because I was injured, you know, like, there definitely can help you work through that. And it's such a beautiful experience. I just think it can enhance your life if you embrace it. So I would encourage somebody. And to me, I think A Course in Miracles, if I was gonna like sum it up in like a word, I believe it's a game changer. It changes your life. So if you want a game changer and you're ready to experience that, because it is deep and profound, then I think A Course in Miracles is the place to go, or the place to start.
Yeah, that is something I am 100% in concurrence with, and it was wonderful having a chat with you this morning. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, if they have, you know, questions or want to contact you for services, give us a way that people can access you here in the material world.
Sure. Well, I have many websites. One of my talents is building websites. And so I've built a few for myself, but one that I use as an online business card is my name, Starlene Breiter. It's StarleneBreiter.com. And you can also look up my name on social media. I'm on, like, you know, the big social medias too, and, you know, connect with me there if you want to, you know, communicate with me. But you can look at StarleneBreiter.com and you can see the links to all my websites and what I do and that sort of thing. So there's a few different things that I do. So it's kind of interesting to check that out. Fun afternoon with some coffee or tea and me.
There you go. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you ever so much, Starlene. We'll wrap it up at this point, and the interview will be aired tomorrow, and then it'll be available for people to come back and look at, you know, across space and time. So thank you once again for sharing an hour with me as we discussed A Course in Miracles.
Well, thank you for having me, Chris. It's been my pleasure, and thank you so much. Namaste to you.
Namaste.